He is not a metaphor. He has his own body. He has his own personhood. He's not a metaphor. And I can promise you, Jesus Christ is not a metaphor.
How can there not be infinite room for interpretation instead of being right about the Bible, I guess? Like, how can you know that the interpretation you have of Jesus is the right one, and it's not informed by maybe misinterpretation?
Sir, there is absolutely no way you can escape interpretation. Every time I read something, I have to interpret. So then the question is, what rules do you use to interpret? For myself, I use two. Respect literary style, read in context. Don't rip one line out of the play and say that's Shakespeare's worldview based on one line out of Othello or Macbeth. Instead, read in context and respect literary style. Does that make sense? And then interpret fairly. What do you think of Jesus?
Living kind of through Jesus is meant to be more of a metaphor than there's nothing literal about the Jesus that you're meant to follow and understand. Like, I think there's a difference between the Jesus who lived on earth and the Jesus that people follow, I guess.
Okay, what's the difference?
That the Jesus that people follow is based on interpretation. It's not 100% certainty, like a real thing.
Well, are you 100%?
I think it's a good thing to follow. I do think that a sincere following of the best thing you know Jesus to be is a great thing to do, but how can you be certain that it's true?
How can you be certain that I'm not just a bad dream you're having right now? Can you be 100% sure that I'm really here?
I guess not.
You're trusting your eyesight to see me. You're trusting your ears to hear my voice audibly. So I'm not 100% sure about anything, all right? But guess what? I can't base my life on that, right? I'm not 100% sure that he's standing right here. But right about now, I have to make a decision. And the decision I have to make is the evidence pointing me to the fact that his face starts there, which means my fist better stop there, or is the evidence that he's just a dream I'm having? So I agree with you, I can't prove it, but as a thinking human being, I got to base my life on evidence. Now, sir, the historical evidence of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John is Jesus really lived. He really taught teachings. He really healed sick people. He really died on a cross, and 3 days later he really rose from the dead. And that's no metaphor when you read the Gospels. That which we've seen, that which we've heard, that which we've handled with our hands, John writes, this we proclaim to you concerning the word of life. It's a clear claim. Most excellent Theophilus, Luke begins, the Gospel of Luke. I've made a careful study of all the events surrounding Jesus. I put them down in an orderly account so that you might know the reason for your belief. Sir, that's a clear claim. Don't you think? How can you believe that Jesus is just a metaphor? What's the evidence?
Jesus isn't alive right now to question, right? We don't have that ability to question what we know Jesus was. All we can do is follow the closest thing that we find. Why does that closest thing necessarily happen? I guess part of my question is also how can you be certain that Jesus is the only way to God? Because I personally believe in God, but I don't believe that Jesus is the only way to God.
Okay, you're making a truth claim. God is either really non-existent and we just make him up in our heads, or God is impersonal, like a force. We just make it up in our heads, right? Okay, that's a truth claim, sir.
I don't know if I agree that you just make it up in your head. God, I believe sort of in like creation, in terms of like, I think that God is, everything came from God, everything that's here now derives from God. I just don't believe that religion is a perfect, I don't think that Christianity is like the end-all be-all of that story.
Christianity's been used to justify a boatload of evil. Okay, we agree. But this Jesus Christ, he is unique. He claims to be God in human form. He's either an idiot, an egomaniac, out of touch with reality, or else he's the truth, right? And like it or not, you've got your own truth claims. If I say to you, all religions lead to God, is that a truth claim?
Yes.
Exactly. If I say half the religions lead to God and heaven, is that a truth claim? Exactly. If I say there's one way to heaven through Jesus Christ, is that a truth claim? Exactly. So I'm sorry, none of us can escape it. We all have truth claims. Now the question becomes, what is accurate? What does the evidence point to as being reliable? And good gracious, guys, the historical evidence is Jesus died and rose from the dead. Therefore, the evidence is he's reliable in a way that none of the options are. How do you know that you're not just following an idealized version of you? If you're creating God.
I think that I am. I think everyone is.
Okay, good. Very good. And I'm standing here saying, don't do it. Do not follow an idealized version of yourself and call it God.
Maybe not myself, but what I think, I guess I kind of, I'm not a Buddhist, but I agree.
Yeah.
Like meditation, I think is a stripping away of what you would call like the fleshly.
Yes.
I think what's left after that meditation is something that's more fundamental, and I think that you can't know what that thing is. I don't think that any religion is the perfect summation of that thing. I think you can experience it directly, but I don't think that book can sum it up.
The New Testament is not calling us to believe in the book. It's a record of this historical person, Jesus of Nazareth, and he makes the claim, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Now he's either nuts or he's speaking the truth. And it's his lifestyle, the way he lives a sinless life. It's the content of the ethical teachings, like the Sermon on the Mount, which obviously are ethical genius. It's the evidence of his death and resurrection that convinces me that indeed Jesus is reliable in a way that my idealized version of myself is not reliable, in the way that me putting the pieces together and creating God according to my preferences and my prejudices is not reliable.
And every Easter Time magazine saying that Jesus just had sex with his mom all the time. Well, if I don't read it myself, if I don't look into context, yeah, I can believe they're right. See, one of the biggest lies at this university is relativism and postmodernism. So what you say is right, what I say is right. There's no ultimate right. So you can say Jesus was having sex with his mom all the time. And I can say that Jesus was actually the Son of God. You're right, I'm right. Who's to say you're not right? Who's to say I'm not right?
I don't think either of us are right.
Exactly.
You could say God is whatever is the real thing, but I can't buy into any story that says that there's only one way to understand that thing.
Because why can't there be one way? If 90% of the world, if 90% of the world says that there is one way to God, their way, why would you, as an enlightened Western white male, who, by the way, you should have a lot of guilt over what you've done, and you're talking about your own personhood, I hope you have a lot of guilt over what you've done, and I hope you understand that you have burned down a lot of cities. You should consider yourself dirt with next to no value. I hope that's the case, correct?
The sort of Christian interpretation with most other religions have some version of this. There's like a worldly and a divine within you, and there's kind of an overcoming of the worldly temptation. You can't get rid of it. You're always falling short, but you can keep reaching towards it forever. I just think that there would and I guess this is where my own personal belief and just my own interpretation comes in, but I don't believe that a God would only make one light in the world when there's so many places that are still so dark. I think that why isn't the Buddha someone who could be considered a light?
There's a lot of truth expressed in every major world religion. But the question is, when they contradict each other, who is right? And obviously Siddhartha Gautama Buddha taught that suffering, the way to get through it is, it's an illusion. Cut off your desires. And Jesus Christ said, no, suffering is not an illusion. It's very real. And the ultimate solution for suffering is eternal life in a heaven where there will be no more suffering, no more evil, no more death. And now, before heaven comes, we're responsible to make this messed up world more like heaven will be. And that's social activism, that's justice, that's integrity, compassion, mercy. Right?
I guess I don't have any follow-up questions. I have a lot.
I really hope you don't walk away from this conversation thinking that we're saying, oh, the Bible completes the person. Oh, somehow you have to buy into fideism, which is blind belief. Somehow you have to buy into saying that we are the only ones who have the truth and a monopoly on the truth. So you've dropped some different lines of thought that I certainly hope don't continue a narrative in your mind that is completely false. I hope you walk away with this discussion with understanding, no, we're making a falsifiable claim out here that's historic. Whether Jesus rose from the dead or not is the issue. Whether you can take the Gospels as reliable historical testimony about who God is, and that's how you know if there's one true God, that's the question. It's not this, oh, I don't believe that there's one true God just because I believe it. I really could care less about your beliefs when it comes to your search for truth. I hope your belief ultimately lands in becoming a Christian in that sense. But in terms of positing whatever, I could care less. I just hope you don't walk away with that understanding, because none of that is what we're claiming here.
I think that if you subscribe wholesale to Christianity, you kind of have to accept you have to do a lot of you have to explore a lot of contradictions to a point, and I don't think that they can ever make sense with a human mind. I don't think that you can I just don't think the wholesale subscription into Christianity is a very good way to do it, when I do think that there is real validity to it. I don't think there's as much difference between religions as a lot of Christians say that there is.
All right. Buddhism, there's no deity. Obviously, Jesus Christ insisted God is real. Do you think those both are equally true?
Buddhism is kind of a famous religion for not really having much theology or much the Buddha basically said the only thing you can experience is what you experience, and through that you will find that sort of truth, that fundamental whatever inside of you, that the soul, you can call it, I think is a good way to describe it. I think that version of something divine is not that much different from the Christian God version of something.
Buddha never once mentioned God. Jesus was always talking about God.
You called it a void. You call it. How did you say it? Something about desires? You described the Buddha's way of teaching.
You cut off your desires.
You don't cut off your desires. You're supposed to not attach yourself to them. You have these desires.
Fine. You don't attach yourself to them.
You don't align yourself with them.
Okay,
you
fine.
Don't align yourself with sin.
Sure.
As much as you can avoid it.
But everything's an illusion.
You only know that it's true because of your experience of it, not because of any philosophy or
Oh, that's not true at all. I have a rational mind that tells me that his face starts right there. Therefore, if I take this, I better stop right there. Why? Because the overwhelming evidence of my rational mind is his handsome face starts there, and I better not swing through him. That's where I live my life. Now, maybe you live your life differently, but I can't. I have to use my mind to find where does the evidence point, and I got to follow the evidence. Epistemological nihilism wins the day if there is no God. Because your mind is simply a highly developed monkey's mind if there is no God. But if there is a rational creator who gave you a rational mind, then he gave you the innate ability to get in touch with reality. And we celebrate that as thinking human beings. We don't go around saying, well, I can't really know if he's here. No, I can't prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt. But the overwhelming evidence is the dude is here. And I better not step on him.
I don't think you shouldn't not trust your rational mind, but I think you can rationalize yourself into any sort of corner.
Agreed upon.
You can rationalize yourself into that nihilist, destructive, only material world where there is no value in life. But I think that's kind of it's a gift of rationalization. You can use it how you want, but you'll only see the truth, I guess, if you really if you kneel down to the fact that you don't know everything, right?
Good. You don't know everything, that's for sure.
You can't know everything, and no matter how far you get, you can learn as much as you want, but it doesn't 100% matter because you're not going to be at the peak of the mountain.
Correct. Never get to the peak. I can know a lot now. No, I'm never going to know everything.
That are beyond the typical experience of day-to-day life. most people don't see God in everything. If you're somebody who's devoted your life to God, maybe you do, but most people don't. I don't think you can only trust, like, rationalize. I don't think you can only trust, like, rationalization.
Good. So you're right. We don't just rationally live our lives with our intellect. We have emotions, we have experiences, we have a will, but we also can know God personally according to Christ. And it's been my experience that that is possible. Do I know Christ totally? No way. Absolutely no way. Do I know him partially? Absolutely. He's my best friend. I have a relationship with him. It includes prayer, meditation, scripture reading, meeting with other believers, and it is so exciting, it is so joyful, it's incredible. It is amazing. And I am scared stiff for you, sir, because it seems to me you've bought into this, where you started, metaphor. No, sir, he is not a metaphor. He has his own body, he has his own personhood, he's not a metaphor. And I can promise you, Jesus Christ is not a metaphor. Jesus Christ really lived, taught, died, and rose from the dead. That's historical fact. Now the question is, can I get in touch with Christ and develop a relationship with him? He said yes, but you're going to have to humble yourself. You're going to have to submit to me and search after me. And Jesus said, ask and it shall be given you. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door shall be opened. In other words, God's not going to play hide and seek with you. If you have a heart to find him, you'll find him. But watch out. If you lapse into this metaphor dribble, I mean, I can play that game. You're just a metaphor. That is so disrespectful. You're not just a metaphor. You're a real person. And I got to learn to love you and respect you, not cancel you by saying you're a metaphor. Well, the same thing is true with Christ. And if I tell you that Buddha was just a metaphor, I'm an idiot. No, he was a real historical space-time person. He really lived a certain way, he taught certain things, and he contradicted Christ often. Not always, they agreed on some things. But come on, they also contradicted each other pretty blatantly, didn't they?
In terms of how to get to God, maybe.
Well, Buddha didn't even talk about God, sir.
He talked about enlightenment.
Fine.
The direct experience of something that I think most people could call God.
The all soul. You lose your individuality. That's what he taught.
And in heaven, you will be you and I will be me. We're not going to all become one.
What parts of you? How do you know which parts?
Your personhood, your being, your mind, your conscience, your reason.
I've quoted Buddhism a lot. I'm not actually like a Buddhist.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it's sort of like Eastern, Western kind of philosophies. I don't think there's as much difference between the belief in the Christian God as there is the Buddhist.
But you brought up rationality coming from experience. Well, I think rationality existed before experience. And I think that rationality came from a rational God. It didn't just pop up from monkeys randomly. It didn't just pop up from an irrational source that all of a sudden just this accident came down and you're a reasoning, capable human being. I think plenty of philosophers now have gotten to the point of saying reason and your truth seeking cannot come from the evolutionary process. It does not come from it. And so there's so many things outside of just the material as an atheist, me ticking away here when it comes to Darwinism, when it comes to naturalism, all these things that atheists believe, that you have so many holes. It's like Jürgen Habermas talked about things that are missing. One of the greatest philosophers to have ever lived. He said from the atheist perspective, you have endless amounts of things that are missing from your worldview. You've limited reality, things like reasoning, to just the physical.
And I'm not an atheist, but I guess I mean more people who look at the world through more of a scientific lens. It's like you can't get the full picture from literally everything, and I think that's what religion tries and most of the time fails to do. That's my problem with kind of metaphors. I think the experience of God is something that's way more direct than religion can provide for that. I'm still, I guess this is still the personal. I'm not convinced about the historical truth of Jesus or the truth that even if he did, was alive, that means he was in the way of God. I guess I'm not convinced on that.
Okay, why? What's the evidence that Jesus was not an historical person, or you can't rely on the Gospels?
I'm saying I'm not convinced. I need to do more research on my own, of course. I'm not a scholar on the subject. I haven't spent my life on the subject. But I don't believe that I think there's been enough reason to tamper with historical evidence to say that I believe in God. I do believe in God. And God is just a term that describes something that nobody can have an understanding of. I think that people who cling so much to religion, they limit their possible understanding of God.
Well, why do you believe in God, though?
Through experience, I suppose.
Through spirits? Dabbling with spirits, or?
Prayer and meditation. I do pray and I meditate.
So you've seen answered prayer, that's why you believe in God?
Sure, yes.
How do you know that wasn't just an illusion? How do you know that was actually...
I don't know. I can never know that for certainty.
Oh. So you don't really believe in God, then?
I have faith in God. I don't believe in God.
Well, why do you have blind faith in God if you have no evidence for him?
Because I've experienced it, and this led me to the best experiences and the best, what I believe is the best life and decisions I could have made. I made through that sort of, as close to an experience of that as I can. They've come from that clarity.
So we believe in a personal God, though. So a personal being outside of space and time has to decide to create you as a personal being, not just a collocation of atoms and chemicals. And a personal being would have to be personal to even make the decision to create in the first place. This God that you talk about, some aloof being who is unnamed and who I just connect with through the spirits, how did that God have the opportunity to make a personal decision to create a personal human being and a universe that actually exists? How does that God, if it's not personal, make the decision to create moral obligation, where you know what is really you ought not do, what you should do? See, if there's no personal God, that all breaks down. And it's just this ambiguous God that has, no, but I don't think it is a shrug, though. I see the shoulder shrug. I don't know if it is a shoulder shrug, because I truly believe that you believe me stepping on a kitty or lighting the kitty's tail on fire is really wrong.
Pain that does not at all need to be there.
Okay, there are many different ethical decisions outside of just pain or well-being.
You can usually root things down back for pain.
Oh yeah, did the Nazis do that?
Yeah, and they did a horrible, evil thing.
Yeah, exactly. Culturally speaking, they thought it was just fine inflicting pain.
Well, there were a lot of people who were terrified to say.
So why is it wrong what the Nazis did?
It's wrong with
They were in power, and culturally, they also had the power, and they determined it as the smartest human race at the time, really, in terms of what they were creating, to be correct.
Smartest,
They were inflicting pain.
I'm using rational because it's your term. I think it's more like clarity versus madness. They were disillusioned.
That's
smart,
ethnocentric of you.
They were smart and
That's so egotistical. Who are you to say the Nazis are wrong? I could easily say the Nazis were right.
You could.
They were the super race. Why is that a bad thing?
You could say that.
Okay, I could say that. So there is no
According to
ultimate
your worldview,
right.
when he says that, he'd be right.
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, to the best that I've aligned myself to what I think is good and what the world has taught me is good.
Right.
I have come to believe that killing 6 million Jews is a bad thing. I didn't need to accept Jesus to believe that.
No, but
No.
according to your worldview, you're not wrong tomorrow and right today, or wrong today and right tomorrow. It's all relative.
Insane.
Pardon?
I would be insane. I would be mad if I did that.
Why?
It's a bad thing to do to cause
According to
unnecessary
who?
suffering.
According to who?
I guess the most amount of the people who are most in line with the
Very good.
experience of something
So
fundamental.
good and evil are defined by the majority in your worldview, right?
No, not by the majority.
By whom then?
I mean, it's not really decided by anybody. It's decided by who's in power. But I think what is good is something fundamental. That's why I believe in God. I think that you can align yourself with that, and you can not align yourself.
Who is this God who defines right and wrong?
It doesn't you can't pin it down. It's not a perfect thing.
All right, then don't tell me that the Nazis who did believe in God were wrong. You have your own take on God. It's all relative, according to your worldview. Correct?
I believe Nazis were wrong. Other people didn't.
Good.
And I guess the deciding factor of that should be the direct experience of suffering versus life versus joy.
Unnecessary suffering, so that's wrong according to you. So who are you to tell me that that's true, if that's your true, and I'm...
I think that God is fundamental beyond I do believe that. So I don't think that it's just my thing, my little hang up on Nazis.
The reason you're wrong is because you can't tell me anything about this God who is real. Just tell me something about this God you believe in.
You can't, because he's infinite. My brain is made out of meat.
Oh, okay, so you can't tell anything about this God you believe in.
You can't encapsulate.
So then don't tell me that I'm wrong if I support the Nazis, because that's my truth. And if you can't tell me anything more about the God that you believe in, except that whatever God is somewhere, and you have no ability to understand what this God approves of or what this God has created, it's all just a cosmic crapshoot. Sir, come on. Your God is an illusion, and you know that, and that's very Buddhist. God's an illusion. Everything's an illusion.
The religions on their own aren't perfect. That's like, I don't think we have much disagreement with what we believe in God.
We got a huge difference, and you know that. He is a human being created in the image of God. He has innate value that doesn't come from me or from our culture or from some elite group. It comes from the God who created him in his image. And therefore, for me to have a racist attitude towards him is to denigrate what God created with innate value. You take God out of the picture, and you're up a creek without a paddle when it comes to explaining why he, me, or any of us have innate value. And you buy right into your culture which says, he's valuable because he's a super stud football player. That's why he's valuable. Or I'm valuable because I'm a white guy. Or I'm valuable because I got a big stock portfolio. And that is such a pile of garbage, it's scary. Jesus contradicts that worldview, and Jesus says we all have equal value because we all have been created in the image of God, and I don't care if you flunk out of here, I don't care if you don't make the football team, and I don't care if you lose all your money. You still have innate intrinsic value because you're created in the image of God, he loves you, and he's created you for a purpose. That is radically different, sir, from your worldview. And you can stand there and tell me, oh no, we agree, really. No, we don't agree. Let's be honest with each other. Don't give me this lie that we agree when you know we don't agree. You're smart enough to know that. We disagree, fundamentally.
I use different terms for it.
Oh, come on. Yeah, and when I talk about God, I'm talking about the white 6'1" male with the American flag wrapped around him, and he always votes Republican or Democrat. Oh, that's baloney. That is total baloney. That's not who God is. That's not who Jesus was. He was born wrapped in swaddling clothes, not an American flag. And he wasn't white either. He was a Jew. Okay, so let's be honest here, guys, and not get lost in metaphor. He's not a metaphor. Neither is he. And if I treat them like metaphors, that's denigrating. They're a real human being created in the image of God. He's not a metaphor. Your name is? Tyree, I'm Cliff, and your name is? Hugo, I'm Cliff.
I do believe it.
Whoa. According to your worldview, why do you believe that?
I just don't believe in the personal God. That's as easy to understand as religion wants to.
Well, it's real simple. If God's not personal, he doesn't have any value, he doesn't have any value, and I don't.
Why does that
Because God's an
I
it.
don't think direct experience I think everyone here experiences the value. I don't think that comes necessarily from a personal God. It
Good.
comes from just an innate fundamental goodness about.
Then you better ask yourself, wow, I have this experience that all human beings have value. Wow, how can that be true if they're just glorified pieces of meat evolved to a higher order? They got to be more than that. They're human beings created by God for a purpose. If you have no God, you have no mind prior to the human mind that defines why these men have value. And it's all a cosmic crapshoot, or a cultural crapshoot, or a power crapshoot. Who's got the guns? Who's got the power? And Jesus Christ contradicts that worldview. You are a delight to talk to.
You are, man. You're awesome.
I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to talk with us. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you guys giving me your time.
You bet.
Appreciate
Well, it's
you.
an honor. Thank you so much.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this episode. Hit that subscribe button. We love for you to join the family. Also, want to invite you to our church in New Canaan, Connecticut. It's New Canaan High School, and it meets Sundays at 9:30 a.m.